dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And you're back on Liberty Nation Radio. I remain Mark Angelides. We're continuing our talk on polling with Liberty Nation senior political analyst and long-time host of this here show, Mr. Tim Donner. Thanks for sticking around, Tim. Now, just to cue in our audience who maybe are just joining us now or just watching this segment, we've been discussing the big polling that's been taking place in honor of Liberty Nation is launching its very own The Public Square Polling Analysis Center this weekend. Do go to libertynation.com and check that out. Now, Tim, earlier we talked President Trump's job approval, which many see, and I certainly see it as one of the biggest and most important polling trends that we can watch as political watchers. And then we discussed the generic ballots for 2026, which obviously there's a lot more data to still come on that because we are still a long way out. But some would argue, and they might not be wrong, that the most important polling to watch right now is what's happening in a little place called New York City. What say you, Tim?
Well, the Democratic Party has a terrible problem. And his name is Zoran Mamdani because of the fact that he is a self-proclaimed democratic socialist, which essentially means he's a socialist, which essentially means in the eyes of Donald Trump and others, he leans towards communism, basically collectivism. Let's call it collectivism because it sort of covers the waterfront. It's a good umbrella term. And, people in the Democratic Party and among Republicans, conservatives, liberals are kind of stunned that Zoran Mamdani not only won a landslide victory over Andrew Cuomo and others in the Democratic primary in Manhattan, but the fact that he seems to have an insurmountable lead to win the general election, even perhaps if two of the other three candidates drop out. I'm still not sure that he would be beaten. So everybody was shocked, but you know what, Mark? They shouldn't be, because we have some good information from a couple of polls, one of them conducted by a left-wing outlet, and the others more mainstream, showing that almost 2/3 of Democrats say that they are open to socialism and prefer it to capitalism. Think about that. Basically, almost 2/3 of Democrats identify more with socialism than with capitalism. And so we really shouldn't be surprised that Zoran Mamdani is as popular as he is. He's also a well-polished candidate. Yeah. He smiles well. He does good political commercials. He can even engage in fairly decent self-deprecating humor. He's an attractive public candidate because he presents very well to young people. But his popularity and the fact that he's going to win this election presents just an almost insurmountable problem for Democrats because the rest of the country, Republicans and independents, which account for about 2/3 of the electorate, figuring Republicans and Democrats are roughly equal, but are outnumbered by independents who are more than 40% of the,
it's about 40-30, yeah.
It's about 40-30-30. It's a terrible problem. And you can see it by the fact that here's the most high-profile Democrat who was nominated in 2025. And yet the Democratic leader of the House and the Democratic leader of the Senate have refused to endorse him, at least yet.
At least at time of recording, yeah.
At time of recording. Now, Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, finally, in the most tortured way, finally, begrudgingly decided to endorse Mamdani because I think for her, it was a lesser of two evils. She wanted to be seen as a team player. But if Schumer and Jeffries come out and endorse him, then they know perfectly well that the Republicans will run those endorsements, will run the Mamdani extremism around the clock during the midterms. And so it's a terrible conundrum for them. And it's one they have yet to figure out. But you know what? The fact that the Democrats have bowed to the most progressive, radical wing of their party, those are chickens that are coming home to roost because now they've convinced enough Democrats that socialism is the way to go. And this is a disaster going forward. And, you know, so-called mainstream Democrats recognized that when they ran Bernie Sanders out of the presidential primary, not once, but twice.
Twice, yeah. Yeah, it's the kiss of death nationally, but it works well in small pockets.
Yes.
For example, New York City, it's probably one of only 2, maybe 3 places in the country that could get away with running a candidate like that.
And the fact that it's isolated this year,
yeah.
because a year after a presidential election is the least important or has the least number of national races by far. So the few that there are,
Jack Chitterelli wants the word with you. He's on the phone.
Enormous attention. So if Mamdani was running in 2028, he'd be sort of a footnote because there's so many other races. But here, he is front and center. This race is front and center. You got gubernatorial races in Virginia and New Jersey.
Yeah.
But other than those two, there's no national spotlight on anyone but Mamdani in the New York City mayoral race.
I wonder if Governor Kathy Hochul's endorsement of Mamdani was as what's the right way to say this without being insulting anyway? If it was 30 pieces of silver more than anything else, because she's got a race coming up at some point as well, and early indicates that I think it's Stefanik. It will be challenging her for the governor's mansion.
At least Stefanik, representative from New York, yes.
And Mamdani, Zora Mamdani, has, as you pointed out, he's very polished. He has a great social media game, and it's really great. It's like it's like his mother, the internationally renowned film director, actually taught him a couple of things about how to put some nice polish on some videos and things. And I'm wondering if the endorsement didn't come with a little bill there, a little price tag, and that price tag is you've got to boost me to the rest of the state. You've got to push for me in return for my support for you. And now this is the kind of thing that happens in politics all the time, but I can't get that the whiff of there's some quid pro quo going on there. Or do I have this wrong?
No, of course, there's always quid pro quo in politics, and who knows what the quid or the quo are. But I think what Kathy Hochul's trying to do is what some of us call putting lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
It's still a pig, but you can put lipstick on it to make it look good and appear good. And I think if Hochul's smart, what she would have tried to get in return is for him to promise not to pursue his most radical policies, to rethink, laying more taxes on the geese that have laid the golden eggs in New York, the corporations and the wealthy who pay an outsized share of taxes who would be driven out of New York if Mamdani is elected. So I think maybe, I'm sure he'll endorse her next year in her run for re-election. But is that something she really wants? I'm not sure about that, because there's a lot of outside of New York City and Buffalo and to some degree Albany. New York is actually a very conservative state. You go upstate New York and central New York and western New York, and for the most part, it's Republican leaning. So I don't know that. I think maybe it might be the opposite.
Could be a poison apple.
Argument. He might have said, I'll endorse you. Hochul says to Mamdani, I'll endorse you, but you've got to promise not to endorse me. It could be that because
it's a thing.
To anyone outside of New York, Mamdani is poison outside of New York City.
So let's just dig quickly into the numbers before wrapping this up. So an average of polling, I think, has Zohran Mamdani ahead, assuming Andrew Cuomo, Curtis Sliwa, and Eric Adams run. He's got an 18-plus point lead on average at the moment, which is kind of insurmountable. Do you think that all four of those candidates will be campaigning come November?
Well, I think the wild card in the race at this point is Andrew Cuomo, who I have to say it was stunning to me how totally ineffectual he was in his primary run against Mamdani. He looks like a spent force. He looks old. He looks tired. He looks like a has-been, to be totally honest with you. And so given that, it's not surprising that he was beaten so badly by this, 30-year-old upstart that nobody had ever heard of who calls himself a socialist. He's the wild card in the sense that can he somehow consolidate the anti-Mamdani vote? Can he scare enough people into not voting for Mamdani in order to come from way behind and win this election? The truth is there's not a chance in the world he can do that if at least Mayor Adams or the Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa drop out. And Sliwa has basically said, now he has a pretty big vote share too of about 20%. Sliwa says he won't drop out because he's raised a lot of money. What he says is, I don't want to give this money back. I was given this money to run and I'm going to run.
Yeah.
And Mayor Adams, you see, he's played footsie with the Trump administration a bit, maybe talking about getting an appointment as an ambassador or something. But Eric Adams is in single digits.
Yeah.
So that won't do it. Cuomo, I think, has no intention of dropping out. So then the only chance is that Curtis Sliwa changes his mind. But at this point, the odds have to be at about 90% that Mamdani will be next mayor of New York.
Yeah, it would take a very extreme coalition of the unwilling to get together. And even if you add all those up, you're probably talking, 46% or something against Mamdani's 43 to 45.
Well, there's been a couple of polls that came out, or at least one that said even if Adams and Sliwa dropped out, Mamdani would still beat Andrew Cuomo. So take those polls.
Yeah. I think the New York Times Siena, if you tally up the three, I think it was exactly the same that they got. All three, Sliwa, Adams, and Cuomo, all three together, same as Mamdani. But yeah,
right, it's true. Those the three other candidates total added up is the same as Mamdani. Never take a point or two.
It's his race to win, and New York's experiment with socialism to find out what happens there. And we'll be watching it on the page of libertynation.com, especially our new Public Square polling extravaganza. We'll be back with Tim after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.